There's an extended sequence in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 3, where Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker, while inhabited by the Venom symbiote, goes and has a little dance all around town. He gets a new fit, changes his hairstyle, and generally goes on an odyssey of cringe across Manhattan. But I don't know why I'm telling you this, you already know. Because fairly recently, in the last couple of years or so, this became a meme, affectionately known as Bully Maguire. But while most of you are likely familiar with this weird little montage, I don't think people tend to realise just how central the Bully Maguire sequence is to the themes of the Raimi trilogy as a whole. Okay, maybe that's overstating things slightly, but I do think there's something here that isn't always recognised, so let's rewind back to Spider-Man 1, and I'll explain what I mean. So one of the things which is painfully obvious on rewatching this movie is that when it comes to what is arguably that film's most important emotional through line, Peter's romance with MJ, it's not actually resolved due to the spider bite. Not directly, at least. Because while so many of the iconic moments in this romance we might think of from this film involve Spider-Man, like when he rescues her from the Green Goblin or when they get nasty in the rain, Peter's success in getting closer to MJ by the end of the film isn't because of any of this. It's a lot simpler. It's about self-confidence. We see so many times in the first half of this film potential moments where Peter could have approached or talked to MJ, and he just doesn't. There's so many missed opportunities for easy and genuine connection. The scene in which we're properly introduced to MJ demonstrates this better than anything else, in fact. When Peter decides not to strike up a conversation with MJ at the museum, Harry does instead, and he uses Peter's line.
Some spiders change colors to blend into their environment. It's a defense mechanism.
You know, spiders can change their color to blend into their environment.
Really?
Yeah, it's a defense mechanism.
Cool.
The implication here is that it's this moment, this chance Harry takes, which leads to his dating of her later. Could have been Peter, but he didn't shoot his shot. Like I said, this sort of thing happens again and again, most egregiously perhaps in the canteen scene, where she's like pretty openly flirting with Peter, or at least opening up to him, and he just stares at her like a big weirdo.
Hey, you have blue eyes. I didn't notice without your glasses. You just get contacts?
Like, come on man, just say something. In fact, the first time we see these characters building a connection, it's because Peter makes the leap and just talks to her. And this is before he becomes Spider-Man, before he even does his whole homophobic wrestler bit.
What are you doing up there?
Staying away from you. That's a cute outfit. Did your husband give it to you?
Throughout the rest of this film and its sequel, confidence is the reason Peter and MJ's connection grows, and it seems that this confidence of Peter's is a result of his Spider-Manning. You know, when you're used to flying through the sky punching millionaires, talking to the girl you like maybe becomes a little easier. So yeah, in a sense, Peter's relationship with MJ happens due to Spider-Man, but only because of the indirect effects of superheroism on Peter's personality. It didn't have to be because of Spider-Man. We see that, and I think Peter sees it too to some degree. Let's bring things back to Bully Maguire. Remember, at this point in Spider-Man 3, MJ has broken up with Peter for a few fairly contrived reasons that we won't get into now. And remember, Peter's also hosting the symbiote, which exaggerates the negative qualities and ego of its vessel. It's very clear when watching this sequence that Peter isn't over MJ. All that dancing up to women in the street, soliciting of cookies, and aggressive metrosexuality is how he's responding to the breakup. Not the healthiest way of dealing with your emotions, but hey, it's the symbiote, and this Peter's always been a bit of a jamoke when it comes to this side of himself. Perhaps the climax of Bully Maguire is when he takes Gwen Stacy dancing to the bar MJ's working in a transparent attempt to make his ex jealous. Naturally, this doesn't work at all, makes him look like a prick, and repulses both MJ and Gwen. This was always going to happen. And the fact that Peter didn't see this is comparable to the fact that he can't tell or doesn't care that the rest of his dancing around Manhattan also makes him look ridiculous. If this were you or I, we'd have cringed our way into a hospital after 5 minutes of this nonsense. But Peter doesn't cringe. The part of himself that cringes is dead. I think the key to Bully Maguire is this lack of self-awareness, this blinding overconfidence in himself, in his fit, his moves, and his new schlid. And if overconfidence is the crux of Bully Maguire, then what does this mean? Why is it important? Well, I think the decision to portray Peter like this goes back to Spider-Man 1, and the role that the Spider-Man created confidence played in Peter's winning of MJ's heart the first time around, even if he felt like he couldn't act on the romance just yet. Because the implication is that when Bully Maguire's planning to make MJ jealous and get her back, he remembers that first leap of confidence, how he went from staring at her and never approaching her to genuinely putting himself forward. On some level, I think the real Peter, beneath the symbiote and beneath Bully Maguire, is hurting. Why did MJ leave, he thinks? Maybe some part of his mind makes that link between his earlier increase in confidence and the way that opened the door to MJ's heart for him. And maybe what we see with Bully Maguire is the symbiote taking that pain, that inadequacy, and maximizing it, twisting it and corrupting it into an overconfidence and bloated ego so great that he thinks he's the coolest boy in school. That's why he's two-stepping all over the city. That's why he tries his harebrained jealousy plan. And superficially it works at first. He's getting interest from Betty and Gwen, and then obviously it all falls apart. I think to some extent a theme of Spider-Man 3 is emotional maturity, and the idea that relationships of all kinds can only work with honesty. When Sandman is honest to Peter about the night of Ben's death, he is forgiven. When the truth about Norman's death finally comes out to Harry, New Goblin helps Spider-Man instead of trying to kill him, and in this vein, maybe the point of Bully Maguire is that unhealthy coping mechanisms and responses to emotional trauma, as symbolized by the symbiote's effect on Peter, might seem attractive in the short run, but they don't work, and they won't. And it's only after Peter purges this toxicity from himself that he's able to start reconciling with MJ. So there you have it. Maybe Bully Maguire is slightly deeper than you thought. It's still really cringe though. Maybe this entire video is cope from me after sitting through it one more time. But who knows, I've been rewatching old Spider-Man stuff recently, no prizes for guessing why. So if you want to see more similar content when it inevitably pops up, consider subscribing. But that's all for now, so thanks for watching. Bye bye.